Type 2 Hero by Mad Nimrod. Chapter 17. Focus and Function. The first round had just ended. Izuku leaned back in his chair and took a few deep breaths. President Mike had climbed back into his seat during Todoroki's fight and was now drinking from a water bottle. Quite an exciting first round, huh? Izuku smiled. Most of it, Mike chuckled. Definitely interesting all around, though. I'll admit, I really didn't expect so many of your classmates to make it this far. No way general education's gonna be forgotten this year. Looking at the brackets for the next round, the pro hero smirked. So, who do you think's gonna win the next round? Izuku stared at the lists in silence for close to a minute before stating his verdict. Not telling. What? Mike laughed. Come on, you gotta tell me. And spoil the fun? Izuku smirked. Oh, you jerk. While President Mike and Izuku were discussing the odds of winners in the next round, Moriboshi had successfully dragged Todoroki to one of the outside food stalls. It was a large stall, with multiple dishes cooking all at once. Moriboshi sat on one of the stools, pulling the still confused/flustered Todoroki down next to her. Pick something hot, the Ice Queen gestured. My treat. We're the last ones, so we can take our time eating. You don't want to watch your classmates? Todoroki asked, eliciting a laugh from Moriboshi, which made him feel even more warm. Sakai-kun's gonna kick Bird Boy's ass. Moriboshi stated it like it was a historical fact. Now come on, place your order. There was a few seconds silence before Todoroki pointed. I'd like some chilled His words were cut off when Moriboshi flicked his brow. Something hot, numbskull, she glared. Since you refuse to use your fire, you'll need to find alternate means of warming yourself up. Take it from me, hot foods are actually a good option. Now, try again. Moriboshi kept glaring at Todoroki until he finally relented and ordered some stir-fry. Moriboshi gave a warm smile and ordered yakiniku. As the meals were being cooked, she looked back at the icy hot boy and said, So, tell me about yourself. What? The sudden question caught Todoroki off guard. Tell me about yourself, she repeated as she leaned on the counter, her ponytail dangling behind her. Do you got siblings? What's your mother like? Or even the big question, what is the exact reason you can't use your fire? I know part of it is because your sperm donor is Endeavor, but that can't be all, can it? I understand if it's personal, but in my experience, talking about rough stuff, even just a little, can help so much. Todoroki was about to reject the idea, but then he saw her face. While her wording was nonchalant and casual, her expression was one of pensive worry. Was she genuinely concerned about him? The only people he could ever remember being worried about him were Fuyumi and his mother. Not only that, but the look of worry on her face was making his chest hurt. For reasons he was only beginning to understand, he never wanted to see her make that face. Todoroki took a breath as their meals arrived. It smelled delicious, but before he took a bite, there was something he wanted to know. You first, Todoroki stated. What is a girl with a strong quirk like yours doing in general education? Because I applied for it? Moriboshi laughed as she started eating her yakiniku. I don't want to be a hero, but I wanted to attend UA because any UA graduate is basically guaranteed a spot in any university. You don't want to be a hero? Todoroki asked with wide eyes. Pro-heroism was Japan's most sought-after occupation. He had never met anyone who didn't want to be a hero at some point in their lives. No, the girl shook her head. There's more to life than being a hero. There's more to heroics than being a hero. My goal is to work for the government or armed forces once I graduate. I don't want to be a poster child for our current society. They took another few bites in silence before the ice girl poked him with her chopsticks. Your turn. Why do you want to be a hero? Todoroki froze for a moment. I don't know, really, he admitted. This role was kind of forced on me. Decided even before I was born. Before you were... Moriboshi whispered. What do you know about quirk marriages? Oscar was lost. The mouse boy stepped outside to grab something sweet from the stalls to bring to Asano, but couldn't find his way back to the waiting rooms. He found his way back to the stands or the field multiple times, but just could not find the one room he needed to find. Why did the hallways have to be so confusing? As he jogged past a vending machine for possibly the 5th time, he gave a squeak of surprise as his face bounced off something soft and he fell to the ground. At least he didn't land on his tail again. Rubbing where he landed, he looked up to apologize when he saw just who he had bumped into. It was that tall girl from 1A. What was her name? Yeah, Yorozu, that was it. She was tall, and he was short. That means the soft thing his face hid. Oscar immediately turned bright red and spun around to prostrate himself before the hero student. I'm sorry! I wasn't watching where I was going, and... It's okay. Yayorozu waved her hands, trying to calm the mouse boy. I should have been watching where I was going as well. Her eyes widened a bit as she realized who she was talking to. Hey, you're from Class 1C, right? Yes, Oscar said as he looked up at her. I was trying to find my way back to the Class C waiting rooms, but I got lost. Momo stared for a few more seconds before smiling and holding out her hand. Oscar looked at her hand nervously before taking it. Momo kept smiling as she helped the mouse boy to his feet. I know where the rooms are, the hero student stated. I memorized the map earlier. I can take you where you're headed. Really? Oscar asked. Thank you, Yayorozu-san. Oh, you already know my name. Momo giggled as she pulled Oscar along. The two students continued chatting, unaware they were being watched by a certain girl with green scales. And we're back! President Mike yelled as the 15-minute break ended. Everyone ready for the next round? Give me a yeah! The audience roared with excitement. Rock on! Midoriya, call out the fighters! You got it, Izuku cheered. From my own class of 1C. Come on out, Sakai Heavy! The crowd cheered as the blue serpent slithered onto the field. And from class 1A, give it up for Tokuyami Fumikage! There was another cheer as the bird-headed boy stepped up. So, who will win? The flying serpent or the master of shadows? I'd say place your bets, but gambling isn't allowed on school grounds. This got a laugh from the crowd as Mount Letty stepped forward to restate the rules. Tokuyami watched Sakai as he curled into his tight S-curves. He would need to keep a close eye on Sakai. He had been caught by surprise when he fought Choji, and his body was still aching from the blows. Meanwhile, the snake in front of him had demonstrated masterful agility during his fight against Ashido. He would not underestimate this schoolmate, even if they didn't have arms.
Begin!
Mount Lady yelled. Sakai did a spring launch at the exact same moment Tokoyami conjured Dark Shadow. He knew that Sakai couldn't change direction mid-air, and his current trajectory would send him flying into Dark Shadow. What Tokoyami didn't expect, however, was for Dark Shadow to give a squawk of surprise and bend over backwards from the impact. Before Sakai could pull back, Dark Shadow grabbed him and threw him back across the arena. The Serpentine student plopped on the ground and curled into more S-curves before Dark Shadow rushed him. Tokoyami's quirks slammed their claws into the arena, barely missing Sakai as he flew to the side. For a brief second, there was nothing between Tokoyami and Sakagi. But that moment wasn't very long. Wasn't long enough for the snake to spring launch. Dark Shadow screamed as they swiped their claws through the arena floor, doing everything they could to keep the snake away.
Looks like another deadlock,
Mike called out.
Dark Shadow's just too fast for Sakai to find an opening.
At the same time, Izuku piped up, Sakai-kun is too nimble for Dark Shadow to catch. I have no idea who could win this one.
Liar, you totally have an idea.
Mike laughed. As the two commentators spoke, Tokoyami was beginning to feel the least bit frustrated. Sakai had dodged literally every move sans that prior throw, and didn't even seem tired from all of his launching. True, he didn't really get exhausted from using Dark Shadow and Sunlight, but he wanted to end this fight before the judges declared time running out. He needed to finish this now. Dark Shadow clawed into the arena again, and again Sakai dodged. As the snake landed, however, he had to move again to avoid a chunk of concrete. Dark Shadow gave a menacing chuckle as he grabbed another chunk, ready to throw. The snake just laughed.
Took a page out of Joji-kun's book, huh?
Sakai asked.
I intend to finish this quickly,
Tokoyami replied before Dark Shadow threw more concrete.
Same here,
Sakai shouted as he launched away from the concrete. To everyone's surprise, his launch sent him flying right at Dark Shadow. Rather than impacting it like he did before, Sakai looped around Dark Shadow's neck. Before the quirk could grab him, Sakai slithered down Dark Shadow's body like he were descending a tree. He moved faster than Dark Shadow could turn, and in mere seconds he was right in front of Tokoyami. The bird-headed boy was frozen in shock for a moment too long, and failed to dodge as Sakai shot out and bit into his shoulder. Tokoyami screamed in pain while Sakai coiled around him, pushing him to the floor from the added weight.
Dark Shadow! Get him!
Tokoyami yelled. Instead of extricating his host, Dark Shadow stayed in place, poised to strike yet not moving an inch.
Dark Shadow?
I can't move, boss! The quirk hollered. Tokoyami's eyes widened from shock as Sakai stopped biting and slowly uncoiled from him, around him. The hero student tried to get up, but found he himself was also frozen.
What's this?
Mike asked.
Sakai's let go, but Tokoyami's not moving.
That's Sakai's other trick, Izuku smiled. Along with his size and speed, Sakai-kun also has a paralytic venom. One bite and you're down. He couldn't use it during his fight against Ashida-san due to her acid, but Tokoyami-kun lacks that defense. As Izuku explained this, Sakai slithered away from the prone bird boy.
The venom's gonna hold him there for 10 minutes.
He addressed Mount Lady.
Can you call the fight now? Or do I have to pull him from the arena?
I don't think that's necessary. The giant heroine smiled and raised her hand. Tokoyami Fumikage is unable to continue. Our first semi-finalist is Sakai Hebi of Class 1C. The crowd again cheered with excitement at the declaration. Sakai slithered back towards Tokoyami, who was looking at him with a tense glare.
The venom is also a blood clotter,
Sakai explained.
You don't need to worry about bleeding out or nothing. You did good, dude. Might want to focus on beefing yourself up, though.
With a bow of his head, Sakai left the arena just as the medical bots rolled up to carry Tokoyami away. Mike then announced that, once again, they would take a few-minute break so Cementos could repair the arena. Todoroki and Moriboshi were walking back to their respective waiting rooms in silence. He had told her everything. The quirk marriage, how his father treated him more like a weapon than a son, what his mother did. All of it. Moriboshi had listened the entire time, never speaking up. Her face was a mix of impassive and concern, though her freezing her chopsticks, plate, and stool were signs she had been anything but calm. It felt nice. Nice knowing she was just as enraged over his father as he was. When they reached the Class A waiting room, he nodded his farewell and turned to open the door. Before he even touched the handle, Moriboshi's hand shot out and grabbed his own. I get it, Moriboshi stated. He turned to her and was shocked to see the faintest hint of tears in her eyes, glimmering like small flecks of ice. I understand completely why you feel the way you do now. Why you worked so hard to shove that fire aside. But you must understand that fire is yours, not his, not anyone else's. Yours and yours alone. I know, Todoroki admitted. I'll see what I can do, but thank you. He gently pulled his hand away and stepped into the waiting room, leaving Moriboshi alone in the hallway. She stood in silence for a minute or two before wiping her eyes and reaching into her pocket. With a look of hardened determination, she pulled out a cell phone, hit a few buttons, and held it to her ear. Uncle, it's me. I'm calling in a big favor. Chapter 18. Function and Form. While Sakai was fighting Tokoyami, Uraraka sat in the 1A waiting room. She had her match next, and she needed to clear her mind. It was hard, though, when every time she closed her eyes, she just saw that pretty blonde lady. With her shining blue eyes and her radiant smile into her. No. Bad Ochako. Focus on your next fight. Shutting her eyes tight, the hero stood and took a deep breath. Her next opponent was Kagero Kiena. She had watched the winged students fight against Yayorozu earlier. She knew the girl's wings were tougher than they looked, and she could actually use them to hit people. Uraraka was uncertain how skilled she really was in hand-to-hand, though, considering Kagero had asked Yayorozu for a weapon before the match began. She couldn't rely solely on that hypothesis, sadly. With everything Class 1C has done, she wouldn't be surprised if Kagero could electrify her feathers or something equally out there. The PA called the end of the current match, and Ochako got to her feet. It was her turn. She gave a quick glance to Todoroki, the only other member of 1A to get this far, before stepping out. As she walked down the hall to the field, she was passed by medical bots carrying Tokoyami on a gurney. She gave him a worried glance, seeing he was stuck in what looked like an uncomfy position.
Wait,
Tokoyami said, causing Uraraka and the robots to stop.
Uraraka-san, a word of warning. I don't know how much you heard over the speakers, but don't let that snake bite you. He
can paralyze.
Uraraka nodded.
I saw him use it during the USJ. I know, don't worry.
Tokoyami gave a sigh of relief, and the robots continued their trek towards Recovery Girl's office. Uraraka watched for a few seconds before continuing her own walk to the field. She squinted a bit as she stepped outside, taking in the roars of the crowd.
Here are our next fighters,
Mike yelled.
On one side, the Queen of Gravity and Behemoth of Class 1A. Let's give it up for Uraraka Ochako!
From the other side,
Izuku stuttered.
the winner of the first two events and class president for 1C. Give a shout for Kagero Kiina.
The two combatants stepped onto the arena. Uraraka stared at Kiana, taking every detail in she could. Kiana just stood there smiling at Uraraka, her sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Kiana wasn't as tall as Ochako, nor as muscular as it seemed, but she still gave off a very confident air.
No weapon?
Ochako asked.
I thought you used a sword earlier. Do you have a weapon?
Kiana asked in reply. There were a few seconds of silence before Ochako shrugged, getting Kiana's point completely. Uraraka raised one arm while tapping it with her other hand, lessening her gravity. At the same time, Kiana stretched her wings forward and hunched down a bit. Both girls were ready. Mountain Lady called the fight to commence, and both girls shot towards each other like bullets. Ochako utilized her lessened gravity while Kiana just flapped her huge wings to propel her forward. Both girls met in the middle of the arena, their fists bouncing off of each other. Ochako followed up with a kick that was blocked by Kiana's wing, before dodging the angel's own fist. Ochako jumped back to avoid Kagero's swinging wing, before shooting forward again with a left hook. To her surprise, Kiana saw through this, grabbed Ochako's arm and hurled her towards the edge of the arena. To avoid flying out, Ochako negated her quirk before reactivating it and charging Kiana again.
Whoa! And we thought a few of the earlier fights were wild!
Mike roared as the two girls fought down below.
Both girls definitely have combat training,
Izuku pointed out.
And it looks like Ochako-san's height is kind of working against her here. So since it's harder to duck under Kagero's wings.
This was proven true when Ochako got a face full of feathers and was pushed back a bit. Kagero followed up with a few punches to Ochako's gut and chest, trying to utilize the hero student's reduced gravity to push her closer to the edge. Uraraka swung her fist at Kiana's face, but missed at the last moment as the gen ed student flew up a few meters before crashing back down, and narrowly missing Uraraka with a slam that cracked the concrete.
Flying?
Ochako giggled.
I thought you were gonna play fair here. You can reduce your own gravity,
Kiana pointed out with a smile.
I believe that qualifies.
Kiana shot forward as Ochako prepared another punch. Just before impact, however, Kiana shot to the side, dodging the punch, then flew back and grappled Ochako. The two students spent a good minute or three fighting for dominance in that middle spot, neither giving an inch and the crowd loving every exchange. Both girls gave as good as they got, and sported bruises and bloody lips when they finally separated. They panted for air, their arms and legs sore from the exertion. Even Kiana's feathers were ruffled and uneven. After catching their breath, Kiana moved one wing into a shielding position and readied her right hand for another punch.
Ready to go again?
Kagero laughed, clearly enjoying the fight.
Actually,
Ochako smiled softly.
I need to apologize. Apologize?
Kiana voiced.
For what?
Rather than a verbal reply, Kiana received the answer in the form of a much faster Ochako appearing right in front of her. Before the angel could react, the gravity girl pushed her wing aside like it was a window curtain and delivered a single hard punch to Kagero's stomach. The impact was strong enough to send Kiana flying backwards, surprising literally everyone in the stands. Kiana spread her wings to hold her flight, but in doing so left herself open to another hard punch. How was Ochako moving so fast now, and hitting so hard? Before Kiana could finish her thought, her opponent delivered one hard kick to her sternum. The force of the blow was enough to both knock the wind out of Kiana's lungs and knock Kiana herself out of the arena. She bounced off the grass and Mount Lady immediately called the match.
Kagero Kiana is out of bounds!
The giant heroines shouted.
The winner is Uraraka Ochako!
The crowd again went wild at the result, and Ochako quickly jumped from the arena to help Kiana to her feet.
I'm sorry,
Uraraka whispered as she carried the angel off the field.
I didn't hit you too hard, did I?
Kiana could only shake her head in reply, still too winded to speak up as the two staggered towards the recovery girl. Did that just happen? Hayashida asked the rest of his class in the stands. Seriously, did that just happen?
Where did that even come from?
Hojo asked, her tongue flailing wildly.
It's like she leveled up mid-battle or something. She wasn't happy, though.
Katsura asked, her head bowed. The blind girl had been watching the battle carefully, taking note of each emotion. She could feel Uraraka's was full of regret in those last few seconds, like she didn't want to go that hard. That was confusing. Why wouldn't she want to do her best? She'd have to ask later. For now, she was feeling an incredible amount of fear from her right. Turning her head, she could feel that emotion absolutely flowing off Sakai. Anyone who did have vision that looked at Sakai could see him vibrating. Despite his lack of eyelids, his eyes looked wider than usual, as well.
Sakai-kun?
Katsura asked.
I gotta fight that next round.
The snake whined.
I'm gonna get curb stomped.
Todoroki sat in the Class A waiting room. He didn't really pay attention to the fight. He was fairly certain Uraraka would win, anyways. He had encountered her a few times in the past and witnessed some interesting things. Putting that aside, he kept focusing on what he was doing. Trying to call his fire. He could feel the heat. He could call on it to help melt ice easily. Anytime he tried to conjure actual flame, however, the minute he felt it coming, his vision would be filled with his father's face. He'd push the face away, but when he did, he'd notice his arm was cold again. He sighed and tried again. And again. Every time ended in failure. Why couldn't he do it? He needed to do it. He knew that. So why? He was shaken from his thoughts as the next fight was announced.
This is gonna be an interesting match.
Mike yelled over the PA system.
A face-off between two members of Class 1C.
Asano Ryoko versus Moriboshi Ayame.
Izuku yelled with him.
Asano-san can make herself very tall, while Moriboshi-san can conjure and control ice.
Todoroki heard the crowd roar with excitement at such an unusual matchup. He heard Mount Lady call the fight to start, but didn't need to watch the fight. He had no doubts who the winner was going to be.
So, Midoriya,
Mike asked.
got any ideas who's gonna win here?
Well,
Izuku stuttered.
I know that these two sparred a lot during the past few weeks. Asano-san had one glaring weakness in the past, so if she's gotten that covered...
Izuku stopped as Todoroki heard a loud kya, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground.
And there it was. Asano Ryoko is unable to continue,
Mount Lady declared.
The winner is Moriboshi Ayame.
The crowd sounded less enthusiastic as Todoroki got to his feet. It was his turn now. Stepping out of the room, he was careful to peer around the corners to make sure Endeavor wasn't waiting to ambush him again, as he made his way to the arena. The crowd roared as he presented himself when Mike called his name, and he calmly walked up the steps to the arena. Across from him was Gakushu Hifumi, who was not dancing this time. Todoroki remembered his fight against Ida earlier, assuming one could call it that. He remembered this rotund schoolmate could flatten and inflate himself pretty quickly, and unleash a shockwave every time. He had no idea how hard those shockwaves could hit, though. Were they strong enough to shatter ice? How many times could he change in succession? The ice user chuckled a bit, amused at how much he had changed since joining UA. Before, he wouldn't have given this fat guy a second thought. He guessed all the times once he had surprised him, combined with all the quirk lessons involving Midoriya, were making him think more. The instant Mount Lady announced the fight to begin, Todoroki shot a panel of ice in Gakushu's direction. This was less an attack and more a test to see how fast he could shoot his ice. The rotund student dodged the ice easily and rushed at Todoroki faster than most people assumed he could move. He closed in almost before Todoroki could react, and the icy student sent out an array of ice spikes to get some space. Instead of backing away, Gakushu simply 2D'd himself and slipped between the spikes before 3D'ing and rushing forward again. Caught by surprise, Todoroki shot a large rod of ice at Gakushu, and realized it too late it was too high. His eyes widened as he saw the pole shoot right for his schoolmate's head, their eyes wide with shock. Todoroki stopped the ice fast as he could, but not before the pole extended a few meters over Gakushu's shoulders. His head was nowhere to be seen. The entire audience was silent, staring at Gakushu's unmoving form. After a few seconds, though, something unexpected happened. Gakushu's headless body slowly took a few steps to the side, away from the ice. Todoroki watched with wide eyes as the silent body moved like a person after a near miss. Oh wait, it was a near miss, wasn't it? After a moment, Hifumi clenched his fist and there was a pop, as his head reappeared right where it belonged.
Holy crap, that was close.
Gakushu sighed with relief.
I am so sorry.
What was that?
Mike yelled.
I thought we were seeing something bad, and his file says he can only flatten his entire body.
That's something he figured out during our training,
Izuku quickly replied.
He recently figured out how to flatten different body parts. Wait till you see how else he uses it.
Todoroki had the feeling he didn't want to see that. Wincing in a premature apology, he raised his arm and threw a glacial strike at Gakushu. It wasn't as big as it could have been, but it still covered over half the arena. The large student was nowhere to be seen. Todoroki looked around. He didn't seem to be encased in the ice, but Mount Lady hadn't declared the fight over yet either. Where was he? Suddenly, he heard a loud gasp from the audience. Looking at them, he noticed they were looking up. Above him, confused, he turned his attention skyward. At first, he didn't see anything. Then he noticed something. It was hard to see, like it was super thin. He only spotted it when it flapped a bit, looking somewhat like a blue towel drifting down. As it got closer, he realized what it was. Gakushu shouted as he turned 3D above Todoroki. The resulting shockwave was enough to send Todoroki spinning and flying away from the round BNHA student. Todoroki actually bounced a few times before he caught himself, by which time Gakushu was on the ground doing a pseudo karate pose.
You pulled out your ultimate technique, huh?
Gakushu laughed.
Then allow me to show off my own.
He dashed forward as Todoroki was getting to his feet and decked him in the face. Before Todoroki could recover, Gakushu 2D'd his arm while punching with the other. This didn't bode well for the icy student.
Okuto, 100 paper fists!
The entire audience watched, either cheering or dumbstruck. Of all tricks Gakushu could use, no one expected a series of high-speed punches. Todoroki was definitely caught off guard, taking every punch the Road Sun student threw at him. The force of the punches was also slowly pushing him closer to the edge of the arena.
What is this?
Mike asked, just barely not dumbstruck enough to voice his question.
His quirk,
Izuku bluntly replied.
Those aren't punches. He's holding his arms straight out. He's just using it to flatten and expand his arms at a phenomenally high speed and in alternating order, making it look like punches.
I think those qualify as punches, kiddo. But how will Todoroki counter them? He's completely at Gakushu's mercy.
Todoroki was indeed in a tight spot. The punches themselves didn't hurt, but the shockwaves kept him addled and unable to form any ice. He just needed a brief second of respite, literally a second where Hifumi wasn't decking him. If he got that, he could retaliate. Unexpectedly, he got it when Gakushu slipped on a bit of loose ice and missed 2 punches. Those 2 misses gave Todoroki the opening he needed. Rather than form any ice, he ducked under Gakushu's fist and gave a single strong punch of his own into the fat boy's gut. This hit pushed Gakushu back a few feet, throwing him off balance and letting Todoroki throw another punch, followed by another. It was clear Gakushu was trying to go 2D, but Todoroki wasn't giving him the opening. After a few seconds of rapid punching from the Ice Boy, he displayed his own strength by hoisting Gakushu above his head, and with a very uncharacteristic roar, hurled him out of the arena. The large student was too dazed from the punches to even attempt to stay in the arena.
Gakushu Hifumi is out of bounds,
Mount Lady yelled.
The last semifinalist is Todoroki Shoto!
At that announcement, and with the roars of the audience, Todoroki fell to the ground. He was panting heavily and aching from all the blows. That fight had been significantly more difficult than he expected. He sat there and let a pair of medical bots lift him onto a gurney and carry him away. With some help from Recovery Girl, he would definitely be able to go into the next fight, but he was honestly dreading it.
What an exciting end to round 2!
Present Mike screamed as maintenance teams got to work melting the glacier on one side of the arena.
Looks like we got some exciting fights ahead of us.
You bet.
Izuku smiled.
Up next are the semi-final matches. Call it off, Mount Lady. Sure thing, Green Bean.
The giant heroine winked at the commentator's box before turning back to the crowd.
The first semi-final match will be between Sakai Hebi of Class 1C and Uraraka Ochako of Class 1A. After that will be what I bet's gonna be the second most exciting match in the entire festival, with Moriboshi Ayame of Class 1C facing Todoroki Shoto of Class 1A. Snake versus Gravity in a fight between the Ice Queen and the Ice King. We'll take a few minutes break before the next match, so get your drinks and grab a coat, cause you can bet things will get a bit chilly before the end.
Alright. So as to not wear my voice out too much, I'm gonna go ahead and in the episode here. If you guys like, there are actually a couple of art pieces from the fight between Gakushu and Todoroki that you can check out by following the link in the description down in the story. It's in the 18th chapter where you'll see the artwork. And alright, so I absolutely adore the relationship that Mad Nimrod is creating for Moriboshi and Todoroki. Honestly, I'm having a lot of fun seeing that story. The fights were honestly pretty well paced. Didn't feel like any of them dragged out too long. Yeah. Enjoying the story, definitely. Let me know if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, or just want to talk about the chapters down in the comments section. I'd do my best to answer every comment that gets posted to the channel. And with all of that said, I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. As always, there will be 3 TTS videos going up every day. But tomorrow, I will be doing a theory video, most likely. Might change, but we'll see. And I look forward to seeing you all in the comments section. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all next time, lovelies. Ciao for now.